Donald Trump and his co-defendants are still trying to remove the Fulton County District Attorney from their Georgia election interference case. In a surprise turn of events, though, today, Fani Willis did not take the stand following her fiery testimony yesterday. Take a listen.
You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
All right, I want to bring in our chief legal analyst, Collie Rose, to talk about this. A lot to be able to really take this in different directions and really understand what's going on. And I do want to talk about Fani Willis's testimony. It was fiery. But first, let's explain to everybody, how did we get here and how does this all relate to Donald Trump?
She brought the charges against former President Trump. And because she brought these charges, his legal team, or not his team, but some of his co-defendants' legal teams have tried to find a way to get her removed from the case because of an inappropriate relationship, what they believe is between her and the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. And so this is an interesting part. I totally agree. Listening to her testimony yesterday, it was fiery, but it almost didn't even happen because right before she walked in, if viewers at home weren't watching, they were having an argument of if it was even a reason for her to even testify, because she did not have to testify.
Right.
And so the standard for her to testify is extremely high. And her attorneys were arguing that they hadn't met their burden to make her testify. And as the other side, the co-defendants, Trump co-defendants, are arguing, Your Honor, she needs to testify, she needs to testify. And it felt like the judge was going to say she doesn't.
Right.
And she walks. And she's like, I agree, I want to testify. So you knew at that moment that there were fireworks, that it was about to become contentious. Even more, she took one out of Hunter Biden's page. You guys are asking for me to testify. Here I am. I'm ready to go.
Right. And there was even a point where they're trying to figure out, is she going to be a hostile witness or not a hostile witness? And she said, I can't be a hostile witness because I want to be here.
She doubled down. At that point, she's like, listen, I'm answering the questions. I want to at least have an opportunity to explain my answers. And you're not giving me an opportunity. And so then at that point, there was a back and forth between her, the attorney, her attorney, and the judge. It was like a 4-point triangle. And you see that normally when the witness is an attorney because they want to try to jump in when most of the time they shouldn't.
But the content, I mean, it was juicy and it was private and it felt uncomfortable at times. What were they trying to prove?
Well, I mean, their underlining proof is that was there an inappropriate relationship with the person that she was gauged to have been in charge of that was prosecuting this case? And did you divert in or use funds in an inappropriate manner? And so most of the questions were hit at who spent the money, where'd the money come from, who paid the money back? And so if you look at a lot of Wade's conversation, all of the conversation that they had with him was, where was the money at?
Right.
You listed your tax returns this amount, but she said you didn't have any money here. And so when they got to Willis, they were trying to confirm or contradict what she was saying. Most of that was impeachment. I have to go ahead and say this as a former law school professor. This was a classic dance of the rules of evidence. And so all of the attorneys in the room were doing an excellent job of trying to make their argument for why some statements should get in and why some statements shouldn't get in. And I truly think that that portion of that whole interaction was an amazing legal dance playing out right in front of all of us.
Speaking of interaction, when you just saw this clip here that our viewers are watching, as she came into the courtroom, as she sat down, she came in hot. I mean, the testimony, it was fiery, it was combative at times. She really laid out in a very honest way what she was trying to get across. Did that help her or hurt her?
I can give you a couple of things. She wears a number of hats, and I've talked with a number of African-American DAs that are in this position. First of all, being as a person that prosecutes a number of people that come out of your community is already an interesting dance that you have to do. But then as a person that's prosecuting the former president of the United States, she's held to an extremely high standard. And so there's a mixed bag of reactions. Some folks think that she did an excellent job in terms of responding, and some folks think that her response may have been a little bit combative that may have hurt her in the long run. However, the judge has to make the determination. If this was a jury of her peers, I think her testimony yesterday would have been damaging because it did come off as very defensive. But in the judge's eyes, I think that he thought that she was extremely credible. But those are two different standards.
Right.
In the judge's eyes, I thought she did an excellent job.
And in the court of public opinion, when you saw the memes that went out yesterday, you know, some people were like, hey, she's a boss.
And that's the third court. In that third court of public opinion, I thought she won a lot of points. She held her ground, and she made sure that she stood up for what her values were. That, listen, I don't need to depend on the man. I can depend on myself. For my 3 daughters, I was happy to hear that. For a person that wants to raise daughters that are sophisticated and educated and have fought hard to get where they want to get, she was saying, listen, you can't make it seem like I'm mooching off of this guy. And she wanted to make sure she distanced herself from the argument that I inappropriately gave him funds because I was having a sexual relationship. The fact that she had to defend herself against this person, she was offended by that whole process. And I think that's what you saw coming out.
And she was offended because of her relationship, too, with her father. I want to get to that. We heard from Fani Willis's dad today who took the stand. Take a listen and we'll talk about it.
And is it your testimony that the only time or the first time that you met Mr. Wade was in 2023.
Let me say something. Mr. Wade said that he remembers seeing me, and I do remember some banter. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and there's kind of this thing that goes on between fraternities, and Mr. Wade is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and they, I do remember there was some kind of banter when my daughter was sworn in to be district attorney between me and couple of guys, and he said he remembers me. I don't remember him.
And prior to that experience that you're talking about, as well as, I guess, your official meeting in 2023, had you ever even heard his name?
No, never.
And he was just talking a little bit about his banter that he's had there, but what were your reactions to that?
I mean, what I can say is I have to double down on his statement right there. As a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated myself, I think they are the greatest frat on the earth. But he was saying that they're trying to figure out the timeline. When did you guys start dating? How fast was it? Was it 19? Was it 20? Was it 21? Because they're trying to figure out, was this some scheme? When I say they, I'm talking about the co-defendants attorneys. You got to remember what Fani Willis did at that time was she made sure she redirected the argument back to former President Trump. This isn't about me.
She did.
This is about him.
Yeah, I got to be able to put a shout out in. My dad's a Noop too, so just to be able to put that out there. But colleagues, seriously, real quick, the judge did not make a ruling today. What do we expect can come from this case? And what do you think is going to happen in terms of Fani Willis being still on this case?
I expect that the defense didn't prove their case, that this case will continue going forward. She'll be the district attorney.
All right, colleagues, we appreciate your insight always.